Kelly's the guy. He's the boots on the ground. He knows a lot about drilling, completions, and he's an engineer, extremely bright. We're fortunate to have him on our team and our show. So, hey, today is July 1st. This probably airs on July 3rd, which will be the day before July 4th. What's going on July 4th? Anybody got any big plans? Jordan, you got any big plans?
No, not really. I think just enjoying the time. I feel like there's probably obviously fireworks, right?
Yeah.
I think everyone's gonna do a little bit of that, but no, I don't really have any big plans. I think I'm just excited to have the day to like relax.
Yeah. Yeah. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, man, July 4th. So it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday will be a good time to get away.
Nice that it falls on a Friday, though, I gotta say.
Yeah. What a great time to get out of town, but we're not, and I don't. Not many people are, but anyway, Kelly's out in Houston. Both of you are in Houston, pretty close. Kelly's on the north side of Houston. You got anything planning with those two girls of yours, Kelly?
We live in the country, so we'll put fireworks. And since I've been gone a bunch, I've got a list of chores to work on in the barn and all that stuff. So I'll be using that time to play catch up.
There you go. That's your to-dos.
Before I head west next week, so
Yeah.
you'll see some of our operations next week out west. So I'm gonna get one of them is get my truck fixed up so I can make it out west. But there you go.
There you go. Yeah, we got some stuff going on, so Kelly will be out there next week on the ground looking at operations. And I really do appreciate July 4th, and I think about the people that sacrifice their lives for us to be able to do the Jay Young Show. No, I'm just kidding. But for us to be able to do life, if you think about it for a second, I mean, there's a lot of people out there in this world that don't have the opportunity to do whatever it is that they want to do, and whether it's it's the right thing to do, the wrong thing. It's like, man, we have the opportunity not only from God, but also from our the opportunity that we have because of people before us and that fought in wars, going back to many centuries, and of course the big one, which was 1776, that gave us our independence. So, man, I'll tell you what, if you're a military person out there, thank you so much for serving in our military, and even if you did fight or you didn't fight, you took up your time to go and be for our country and work for our country, and I appreciate that. One of our guys, Eric Barslow here at the company, just showed me pictures of his son who just went in the Army at basic training camp, man. And I said, "What does he think?" And he goes, "Man, he thinks it's pretty tough, but it's not as tough as he thinks."
Yes.
I can't imagine.
No. And there's no doubt any form of military is going to be pretty tough. And like you said, it's not just those that serve, but their families serve too. So we appreciate every component to the military. Thank you for everything. As a military brat, I can say it's quite hard sometimes, but definitely worth it. Definitely worth it.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree that a lot of people out there that I mean, my dad was in the Air Force for a little bit of time, but he got out. But my Michelle's husband, or Michelle's husband, that's me. But no, Michelle's dad was 36 years Army. So, I mean, I had friends throughout, and man, at the funeral, I spoke in between two four-star generals. I mean, he knew a lot of people, and I tell you what, to speak for the family in between two four-star generals, I had to have my A game, and I hope I did.
Oh yeah.
But I didn't get kicked out or anything, so that's a good thing. But anyway, thank you very much for that. Let's talk about the oil and gas markets today. I mean, I tell you what, which is really kind of weird, because who did not think that after the Iran and Israel, who did not think that oil prices were getting ready to go to the moon? You know what I'm saying?
No, a lot of people that I was talking to, they were really expecting that. A friend of mine actually just completed a well drill completed drilling a well. Oh my gosh. But anyway, he was saying, he was like, it's tough because like you never want there to be war, but if there is, like, it's good for our business, and so it's such a tough thing because like you don't want that obviously, but if you are like in the business, that we're in, there's always, impacting factors for whatever component you are in with the oil and gas industry. And I thought that was really intriguing that, he was like, I'm not an advocate for war, but it does impact my business. And
it does look good on that revenue check, right, Kelly?
Yes, sir, it does.
I mean,
a week ago, I would have never guessed where we are today, or 2 weeks ago, I'd never guessed where we are today. So
yeah. I'll tell you what happens during the war and what happens when people start, oil goes to $75, $85, $95 a barrel, and what happens to the cost of drilling?
It's lagged, but there's a shadow, and I had a meeting with some big corporate type service company guys last week, and the problem is they kind of hedge some of that, so anticipate, so it's a weird shadow, the market. Sometimes it jumps ahead. We saw oil prices jump up before the attack, as the tensions built and crash afterwards. But currently prices are still suppressed. So this quick up and down spot market didn't really change it on contracts long term and whatnot. So we haven't been hit with any increase in services over the spikes and valleys the last few weeks. We're still riding. Everybody's looking at the long term and
I mean, if they would have stayed above $75 a barrel and gone to 85, I mean, you'd have seen prices. How much would they go up? Significantly?
You'd see probably a 15% increase in services and maybe even more in tangibles. Tangibles get really affected. World travel, logistics, tangibles could go up 25% easily.
Wow.
With the higher prices.
Wow. Yeah. And people don't realize that. I was with a group at a due diligence conference out in San Diego, and they were saying, well, why does it cost more money to drill a well? And I said, well, if there's a lot of people getting ready to start drilling a well, and there's people saying, well, how much is that rig? Well, it's $20,000 a day. And I got 3 people in line to look at it, and all of a sudden it's like, well, wait, it goes to 22, 23. It's like, no, I'll take it at 23. The demand for any product, whether it be oil and gas or whatever the case may be, oranges, any kind of commodity, you're going to have the price go up if there's more demand, and that's what happens when prices go to. I mean, I'll never forget this, and this is way before Jordan was born, but but I remember back when I was sitting there reading the paper one day, reading the newspaper, literally, the newspaper that you put in your hands, and Jordan, have you ever seen a newspaper before? No, I'm just kidding. I know you have. But
get out of here, Jay.
But anyway, I was reading the newspaper, and I looked, and it said, when the price of oil goes to $20 a barrel. I mean, this is back in the 90s or something, and just looking at it, thinking about when the price of oil gets to $20 a barrel, a lot of these ranchers start doing reworks on their wells, and the economics work. To spend $3,000 or $5,000 or $20,000 or whatever the case may be, they work at $20 a barrel, but they don't work at. I mean, now it's like, well, our break even's at 32 or 55, or some shell wells, not, and I mean SHALE, some shell wells in Midland, Odessa, don't work until prices are $70, $80. I mean, they just don't work. The break even's at $60, $70. On some of that stuff because it costs more money to drill and complete a well. You don't get as much oil out of the ground, and at cheaper prices, they just don't make sense. So not every well that's drilled produces the same amount of oil. Is that right, Kelly?
Correct.
Yeah.
A lot of variables.
Yeah, a lot of variables, a lot of AI that's needed. No, I'm just kidding. We do need AI. We talked about AI. Jordan, you're a big fan of AI. What have you been thinking about here lately with AI? What's been on the forefront here on your mind?
I think it goes back to the same conversations that we've kind of had previously, and a lot of those conversations that were had at the AWS Energy Symposium just a couple weeks back. It's about data modernization on the enterprise level. It's looking at these companies with all of their data points and centralizing that data and then making the data make sense in a way that's comprehensive and is able to be worked into an actionable strategy. And there's a lot of different companies out there with different AI and automation opportunities. So I think it just depends on what your business is doing to find the right fit for you. But one thing that I've learned is that S3 is very important. It's an Amazon product. Don't ask me exactly what it does because I'm still trying to, figure it out. If you thought that the oil and gas world was just a vast ocean, I mean, just imagine AI and Amazon's offerings as well. But, it was really interesting to be a part of those conversations. And I believe that those interviews are going to be released here soon. So once those start to be released, then I'll be a little more free to talk about the... Excuse me. I felt it coming and I was like, no, fight it.
Hurry.
But I'll be a little more free to discuss some of those key conversation pieces from those interviews that happened. But it's really exciting stuff. I'm excited to talk with you about it, Jay, and maybe we can even have some of those guests on the show as well. So
that'd be great.
It's going to be really good stuff. I'm excited for us to kind of dive deeper into that. But just a little teaser for later on. But one thing that I kind of wanted us to dive into, since we're talking about oil and gas and production and things like that, I wanted to talk a little bit about India and them doubling their U.S. crude oil imports. Very intriguing. Let's talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, well, the thing that I remember back right after I read that article about the $20 oil. No, I'm just kidding. But I remember back then, gas prices were $2 and oil was $20. And I remember back then people were saying, well, populations are going to grow, and there's 6 or 7 or 8 billion people on the planet today, and that's going to continue to grow. And as that grows, the demand for oil and gas is going to increase. And I thought about it, and I thought, that's right. But then I also think about, what demand. But you also think about, we're going to go from bicycles to mopeds to motorcycles to cars, and then to pickup trucks as big as Kelly's, and but they're going to be these gas guzzling cars, and it's becoming true now. Because you went from, in India, there's 1.4 billion people in India. 1 million,
it's crazy.
1 billion, 450. That's a lot of people.
You don't expect it.
Yeah.
You're like, there's not going to be that many people there, and it's just crammed and crazy.
Right.
But yeah, when I learned that, Jay, I mean, I don't know what you thought, but I was like, no way.
Right.
Let's fact check this.
Exactly. Yeah. And the demand for oil.
10% of the world's population in one continent. Yeah, please.
Yeah. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. And so we have, the demand for oil is going there. And I know that they've talked about increasing now we export oil, okay? The United States exports some oil. Now, not because we're energy independent, not because Trump said build that drill, baby, drill, not because of any of that stuff, but because we have some oil that we can't use in our refineries here in the United States. And so we overflow our refineries anyway, so therefore we can't refine it, so we might as well ship it somewhere. And we send a lot of it to India. That's increasing their shipments to the United States is increasing their shipments to India. Now we need 20 million barrels a day. We only produce 13, so we're still at a deficit of 7. So if anybody tells you we're energy independent, then tell them that Jay Young said they're full of dookie or whatever. But our refineries only take so much that we do have to do something with it. Might as well sell it to somebody. So we sell it India and China and other countries. But anyway, talking about demand, is that what you want to talk about, Jordan?
Well, I wanted to talk about that, and I also want to talk about the impact of tariffs and how this is influencing business in the oil and gas industry, because it was something that we talked a lot about in those interviews that I did at the AWS Energy Symposium. But I think even now, like with India, and we're seeing this, tariffs are playing a huge part in business decision making right now. So talking a little bit about that.
Can you imagine?
Also,
can you imagine? I mean, I have a friend that he bought this. He was buying and selling, and it's like, okay, he bought something from overseas. It's like for almost $300,000. Okay, so he buys this thing for $300,000, and then he's like, I sold it for $450,000 here. I was gonna make a good profit. That's how we make our business. But then all of a sudden, that thing cost $625,000. So he went from a profit to a loss. He had to go back to his customer and go, hey, I'm sorry that I told you $450,000. I was going to buy it for $300, sell it to you for $450, but he goes, it's doubled in price, and the only reason why it's doubled is because of tariffs. Tariffs talking about it's a free world with trade. No, not when you're getting hit with 30-40% tariffs or more in some of the areas. So what India is trying to do is trying to say, hey, we'll skid you up here. We'll give you some money. We'll give you some money if you will make sure that you come in and don't charge us these tariffs, because we don't like tariffs, because there's a lot of things that we do back and forth with India, and so they don't want those tariffs, and they were trying to find out how can we avoid tariffs.
Do you think that this is a strong business positioning that we've put ourselves in with implementing tariffs, or do you think that it's negatively impacting business opportunities?
That's a good question, and a little bit of both. And I think Trump is fighting with fire on the majority of this, because there is. I mean, it's like, if it all works out, great. There's a lot of risk. There's a lot of risk to some of this to see if it does work. And I mean, he's a smart guy, and he turned me off when he's saying drill baby drill at the end of the year, right before he got elected, after he took all this money from oil and gas people, and he goes, drill baby drill, let's drop the price of oil to $20. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. I thought we were friends here. No, but I said, I thought we were talking about, it's all good for the economy. But anyway, he has done an incredible job. He's a smart guy. I mean, I've been following him since the 80s when he wrote the book, The Art of the Deal. And he wakes up every morning and reads the newspapers. I mean, he's just a glutton of punishment for knowledge and for learning everything about the world. Now, what he does and how he does it, now that's a lot of things that are questionable, and I don't want to think about it, but it's definitely all about him. And and him getting ahead and being on the spotlight for sure. So, but I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, Kelly, any thoughts about tariffs, and has that affected you, or have you seen any backlash for it?
Kind of goes back with our discussion on India and also the world, volatility in the world right now. But tariffs is one of the biggest things I'm worried about right now. Tariffs can affect our costs. A lot of what we do in oil and gas is domestic only. Service providers. We've now got our sand for our fracs 100%. We used to get it from Canada and Brazil. We now get it 95% from America. Things like that. But the number one biggest line item in our well designs is casing. I think I did a report with you a while back, Jay. We did some numbers with Mr. Bolden, and depending on your well design, and some of ours are very casing intensive. A quarter of your cost of a well could be the pipe in the ground, the pipe in the ground, metal, iron, and unfortunately, in several administrations back, a lot of the American steel went away. Mm-hmm. Y'all probably followed Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, even here in Texas, our main steel mills have closed. That was because we outsourced. India, China, Korea, And then also a lot, which we've been affected already. A lot of our pipe, or specialty pipe, comes out of Ukraine, and so we've already seen those challenges and had a shift. And to go with your discussion, long term versus short term gains and losses on this tariff thing. Early time, it's going to affect us. When they all go in effect, we're going to see a huge spike in our casing costs, which will ultimately increase the cost of the well. Hopefully, costs of other services go down to balance some of that. Long term, if we get these steel mills back up and running, raw ore here in the states or with countries that we work with, I think you'll see the long term goals work out right. More American jobs, more opportunities, which I think is my take on why he's doing this. I mean, to make America strong again, not just drill baby drill, but steel baby steel and other things. So, but in the short term, we're going to see a spike.
Yeah.
That's my concern, and we'll just see how it goes the next few months here.
We have so much money that goes out in drilling wells, and it's, I mean, it's like, and if you have a one little glitch, I mean, it could cost you $1 million, $2 million over what your AFEs are, your authority for expenditures, and so it is, and it's really expensive, and if you have to spend more money and it's tariffs and taxes or whatever the case may be, it's going to cost more money. Then you have to get that money back and make a return for your clients. And if you, and if you're drilling at a higher cost, and then all of a sudden it looks really good, $80 a barrel, like Jordan was saying, she has a friend that's getting ready to.
I while we're looking at India, I think that there's something also intriguing here, and that's the technology that's coming out of India. I feel like they've been at the forefront of like pushing a lot of initiatives, and also a lot of people have outsourced to India for tech needs. And going back to what we were talking about earlier with AI, and something that's been a recurring conversation throughout our podcast is data centers and the data center boom and the strain that that's putting on energy output. And I think that that's something that we can talk a little bit more about as there's an increased demand for AI and data centers and just an energy output in general. I think that this is something that's a really key discussion point for the industry, and I think that this is something that we can kind of double click on in this podcast. So Jay, when you're looking at this, do you have any thoughts about like the energy output? I know that we have some numbers here in front of us of what that looks like. Is there anything shocking about these numbers to you?
I mean, demand, right? AI and storage demand and what's going to happen there is going to be incredible. And I was reading last night about Rick Perry talking about, well, hey, we need more electricity. We need more stations, especially in Texas. They said that I think China has like 22 different big data centers set up already producing and being able to store more energy, and we have zero. And so he's trying to get some in Texas.
I was about to say, what in the heck is that?
Yeah. Well, it's mostly in Texas, right? It's mostly about what's going on with the Stargate outside Abilene. I've heard there's one down in near Corpus, Laredo. I'm sorry, Laredo. There's one up near Amarillo. I mean, we have the spots here in Texas to do it. And put together the storage to store more, and also for the AI engines, that they're doing right now, because they take up a lot of power. They take up a lot of power. It's not going to do anybody any favors by thinking that our demand is going to go down. It's going to continue to go up, which means there's going to be more need for oil and gas. So don't drill baby drill. Let's just keep oil prices at 75 to 85. Okay, but anyway, let's yeah. But there's a lot of uncertainty, I guess, around the data centers and the data storage and how much demand is going to continue to go. I can't see oil going down or oil demand going down or reaching. We were talking a couple of years ago about peak oil demand because we were afraid Biden's going to replace every car imaginable with electricity or Teslas, and I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. And they've made a dent, so far. So not much.
Yeah. just to throw a statistic out there, the U.S. Energy Information Administration is projecting total power consumption to reach 4,193 billion kilowatt hours this year, up from 4,097 billion kilowatts in 2024. So the data centers are now accounting for 5% of national electricity use, and like we had said, it's expected to rise, but the EIA is expecting it to rise as much as 12% by 2030, which is just 5 years away. So when we're looking at that demand increase and the strain that that's going to put not just on the grids but also on the need for oil and gas, I think it really puts us in an interesting position when we look at America's positioning now. What are your thoughts on where we're positioned now with our usage, and then where that's going to go, and what impact that's going to have on us as a nation, Jay?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what I like a lot is that's natural gas demand, and we don't have the demand we need, and or the supply we need. So therefore, prices will continue to go up, and our demand for natural gas is going to go up, not only for the data centers and a lot of things that we need it for here in the United States, but also LNG, right? We take it down to the coast where Kelly's from. We put it on ships and we send it overseas. We pay $3.50, and we sell it for $9-10, man, all day long, right? That's a good arbitrage, and that's a good profit center for us. So we do that. I just like the opportunity that I think that a lot of the big data centers are having right now for the demand for oil and gas. And like I said, I don't want prices to go crazy. I'm more of a fan of 65 to 75 than I am, 30 to 120 or something. It gets crazy at $120, 120. I mean, Kelly, I guess you were drilling wells back then when prices were crazy. I mean, how much did you pay? What was the most amount of money you paid for some pipe? Do you remember how much more you spent?
Not so much pipe, but that the kind of market that really flexed on that was like drilling rigs. We just drilled some wells, Jay. At $18,000 a day. I saw long-term 3-year contracts that broke $30,000 a day back in, let's say, 2010, 2011.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it made it. So pipe went up with it, but really like quick services like drilling, and then even just any the price of those spiked. We basically almost double where we are today in those markets, which really affect the overall cost of a well. Yeah.
Man.
So I'm with you there. I don't like the volatility. I like a honed in market, with a $8 to $10 flux. Get us in somewhere locked in, kind of long term, have some spikes and some downs, but not these giant, Grand Canyon type hills and valleys. So
yeah, that's a lot of money. $30,000 a day. I mean, every day. That's $1 million a month almost. It'll be $1 million a month once it'll be $2 million a month once you. The drilling rig is only a small part. That's
Right.
only a small part of your drilling budget. It's not. It's a big line item, but there's 100 different places and things that you need in drilling a well, and that's probably the top line item is a drilling rig. Next would be
it's
pipe.
definitely the gauge by which we measure our costs too. It's the most public thing we have. And you said earlier, supply demand, right? Rig count, but then also commodity prices, and they some of the service companies, reap their benefits. They see those price climbs and they jump on the spike bandwagon. So
Yeah.
volatility is a challenge for sure.
When you're looking at getting into the oil and gas industry, Jay, this is kind of a question for you, I guess. Do you think that it would be better for somebody who's looking to get involved in the oil and gas industry to just invest in like with King operating, or because it sounds to me like drilling a well and like taking that on is a very, very financially steep decision, maybe with multiple partners involved in getting that up and running. So for somebody to invest in the oil and gas industry, better to invest with King operating to start, or what does that look like? Maybe to work with partners to drill wells? I mean, how can somebody get involved but then also help us with where the industry is at and what we need to produce?
Yeah, and it's a good question, and an obvious answer is yes, King Operating, right? King Operating pays for this Jay Young show, and you know what? That's how we do it. But you know what? I've met a lot of people, and I know Kelly could list. I mean, out of 100 people, how many people, if out of the 100 people that you've met drilling wells, Kelly, how many of them would you call back and go, "Hey, I got a well I need help on"? I mean, is it a high percentage of people that know how to drill a well that can really how many of them would you call back? Would you call all of them back or half of them back or?
So I'm blessed. Many years before I came to work for Jay, and even when I started, I ran a consulting firm. So I've seen all the gamuts from rookies to guys that are in their 80s, been doing it since they were in their teens. And there's a variety. And I had an old boss, the drilling manager, that taught me, even personnel in the field. He's a 1 for 4. For every 4 people he brings into his loop, the chances of somebody sticking with him a long time are 25%.
Wow.
So
wow.
it is technical. Technology's come a long way, AI, all that stuff. But AI doesn't drill wells, and you'll read some articles, you'll see some things. The easy oil's gone, right? Like the stuff we got is spindle top, and you drill a hole and oil spews out the top of the derrick, and we don't want that to happen anymore. But that's what we call easy oil. And in any form of industry, you build a simpler wheel. Now tires are much more complicated, cars are more complicated. Oil wells are the same way, right? Technology's come a long way. The easy wells are gone. So we need people with experience. Yeah. So personnel wise, I'd say between a quarter and maybe a third are people you work with that you keep for life, and maybe at least 35% of them deal with them once and hope you never bump into them on the street again. So
yeah, I know. I've seen a lot of people, a lot of equipment, a lot of that. Not as much as you have, but it's a different ball game, and it is people that you have to trust. And I mean, I tell Kelly, hey man, there's the orange flag out there, man. And he goes, all right, I got it done, and he'll drill it, complete it, and have it producing, and that's all he wants. He's not a geologist. I mean, he doesn't know where to drill, right? I can't go, hey, Kelly, what do you think about this location over here or over here? And he'd go, I don't know. That's not me. I don't know where to drill. What about the land? Well, I don't do land, Jay. I do engineering, I do drilling, I do completions, and that's what I'm a production guy. That's what I do. I don't know about geology. I don't know where to drill, how to drill it. Just tell me where you want the hole started and how far down do we go until we turn the bit and go horizontally, and how far out horizontally do you want it? And then I'll put together the best completion job imaginable with today's technology, whether or not they're 180 foot a stage or 200 foot or whatever the case may be. It's awesome. So that's Kelly's expertise.
Jay, for those that don't know, how many people, in your opinion, does it take to drill a well? Outside of Crude, that's actually making it happen, but like all of the team to decide and then get it forward. Well, maybe that too, but in your mind, how many people? And Kelly, you can answer that as well. But how many people does it take to make a well happen?
I'm
good.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll hop in there, Jay. Yeah, so it's definitely not a one-man job, and lots of us do wear multiple hats. But my number is the bare minimum is, and even in large corporations, usually a team is close to 20 people for even so that there's a number. So there's companies like big globals that have lots of 20-person teams and lots of management. But I've worked for tiny operators and king operator size companies, and teams of less than 20, you're not going to be, you need different, as Jay mentioned, you need geologists, you need a landman, you need technical people to help collect the data. And then you need overlapping experience levels and all that. And that's just like the technical side of things.
Yeah. Accounting. I mean, people in accounting, make sure they get the bills, because you're drilling out there, 500 miles from here or something. And somebody's you may have somebody send you a ticket from Oklahoma. You may be drilling over in New Mexico, somebody send you a bill from Oklahoma, and you got to think, well, wait a minute, now what's this bill for? This bill's for the 23rd day of April, and they're saying I owe them $7,000, and they say, what? I mean, you have to have people sign off here, there, everywhere. I mean, it is and there's over 100 vendors. There's 100 different vendors. Now let's think about that for a second. You have people that are getting the bulldozer out there to build the location. It takes a lot of different companies to build a location. Then you got to have somebody help bring the rig in, set the rig down. Then you have to, do the rat hole, and then you have to. I mean, there's just, people that bring out the mud, people that bring out the lunches. I mean, there's just people that
all levels.
We've had some incredible steaks, haven't we, Kelly? On
yes,
rigs?
we have. We will. That's important.
I'll tell you what, that's what somebody needs to do. If you're interested, let's go to a well site, because I'll always go, hey, Kelly, come on, let's go. I'll be there Tuesday. Bring me some steaks, and Kelly will just ask the guys around there, and there's different vendors will bring out those big smokers or whatever, and they'll make the most incredible. We had some Japanese people down there in South Texas. Man, I tell you what, I ate. I had a whole steak, and that was unbelievable. And this lady from Japan, I brought her down there to see the wells and everything, and she cut it.
Wait, was that from the conference that we had gone to, where you were interviewed?
Yeah.
Yeah, you were interviewed by the Japanese broadcast crew that was there.
Yes.
What conference was that?
Heart Conference in Fort Worth, wasn't it? Or
it was Super Doug.
Nape? Was it Nape?
Yeah, Super Doug.
Yeah, it was Super Doug. Super Doug, and you were interviewed. That was so fun.
Yeah, they came down to South Texas, and I met them there, and I took them on a well, and we went around. That was really cool. And matter of fact, the steak, I ate mine. I could cut it with literally a plastic butter knife. I mean, it was.
Oh man.
Oh, unbelievable. Anyway, the lady said she ate half of it. She cut hers and ate half. And I said, "Man, this steak is pretty good, isn't she?" And she goes, "Yeah." And I'm a vegetarian, and that is. And I said, well, you better grab that other half, or I'm going to grab it real quick. And she grabbed it and she ate it. I'm like, oh my gosh. I thought she'd be nice to me about bringing her out there to a well site. Maybe she'd give me her other half of a steak, but
no.
She ate the other half.
Take it home for later. You can't.
That was a year ago this week, Jay.
Oh, was it really? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That well turned out really good too. Love that area.
Yep.
Hey, but anyway,
we'll go back.
I know we're trying to get through that. I know we're going to be here.
Well, I have one last topic.
No, I want to ask more questions, but I want to make sure we're not skipping around too much.
Oh, no, I don't think so.
Okay.
Well, I mean, we're just a few days away from OPEC announcing production increases for August. So let's talk a little bit more about that. I mean, it's OPEC Plus expected to announce a significant oil production increase for August at their July 6th meeting. Fourth consecutive month, it has announced a hike as the alliance led by Saudi Arabia and Russia aims to reclaim market share. Let's discuss. Kelly, what are your thoughts?
The OPEC's a wild card to me. So, and like I said, world market's not doing what we thought it would do with this, so I don't know, with all that's going on in Iran, what these changes are going to bring. I really don't know. And I like to think that I'm pretty good prognosticator, but I'd have lost on the under on this last 2 weeks. So I'm hoping they don't, with the prices where they are. I'm thinking they're not going to bump it a lot more. They may even surprise us to cut back a little bit, but I'm kind of hoping they do. We need to a little bit of bump in prices right now for where the world is, I think. So
Jay?
Yeah, I mean, if they do come on and bring up 400,000 barrels a day, which is what they're talking about, that would make prices go down because we have oversupplied the market a little bit. But I mean, it's not going to be that much. I mean, it's not. We need 20 million, maybe even 21 million barrels of oil a day in the United States. We produce 13. We need 7 from other countries, 8 million a day from other countries. So that's 5%, or something. I mean, it's not overbearing, but if they do that, OPEC does not want lower oil prices for a long period of time. Now, they may do what they did right before COVID. Right before COVID, they brought on oil everywhere and flooded our markets with oil. So they flooded our markets with oil because they wanted to bring the price down. The price is up. They wanted to bring the price down because the lower the price is that the more we don't drill. You know, rig count goes down when prices go down because it doesn't make sense, and people are like, well, we'll just drill that oil later at higher prices. So they decline, or they decrease our rig count. So OPEC and everybody flooded our markets right before COVID, and then COVID happened. So our demand went to, zero. Well, it didn't go to zero, but went to half. And so our markets were over flooded with oil, and oil went to zero. Matter of fact, it went minus for a while, which is kind of crazy because it does cost money. But we had so much oil, our revenue checks literally had a minus on them. You know, I'll never forget, I was doing a podcast with Dr. Jack Graham at Prestonwood, and I'd gone home at lunch, and I saw that oil was at like a penny. I gone to eat a sandwich. It was at a penny, and I got back, and I was doing a podcast with Pastor Graham, and we were just talking back and forth, and all of a sudden I look up in the TV, and I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. What is that? It's a minus sign. There was a minus $20 a barrel or something. Then it got down to minus 47. But I was like, and you can go back on the show and look at it and go, what, Pastor, I'm sorry, but it looks like there's a minus sign in front of the oil. Minus, what is going on? I know, it was so crazy. But then we were having to take, it was literally giving people oil. It's like, we shouldn't sell any because we're not getting anything. We're not making money. We're giving money away, So demand, OPEC doesn't want prices to come down too far, but they will. Let's think about it for a second. These countries run their whole countries off of oil price and oil revenue, right? Mm-hmm. All of our people in the United States, we have independent oil and gas companies, thousands of them. But these countries run their budgets off of it. They own all the oil rights. There is no, king operating, buying a lease and getting in and drilling and, trying to get a 78 or 80% lease. That didn't happen there. This is a lot different. So here they run it. So they want more revenue. So they like to, $30 a barrel to them, could be a huge difference at 70, $80. But they don't want the price to continue to go up too long. They're like, well, let's keep it down. So they'll increase the supply on the market to, they don't want the United States, because the higher the price in the United States, the more wells make economic sense. So therefore, we'll keep our rigs going and increase our rig count, and we're taking market share from them. They don't want us to take market share from them, so they will watch the price, and they will fluctuate. And like Kelly said, it's not a guarantee they're going to do anything or whatever, whenever. You don't know. Nobody knows, and all we can do is just, hope for the best. Like I said, 65, 75 is a great price. Let's just stay there and not have to worry about, huge fluctuations.
Kelly, with the oil and gas prices fluctuating like we've seen in 2025, how is King Operating adapting its drilling and development strategy to accommodate that fluctuation?
Great question, Jordan. And one of the key components to that is volatility is pre-planning. And then more importantly, thanks to Jay's tutelage and the team we've built, we've got a real strong team these days. Strongest in the 4 years I've been with Jay, the strongest team we've ever had. Working real hard to pick projects, hierarchy projects, rank our projects based on profitability and all that. So Jay mentioned the different thresholds, cuts for what wells. So we have wells, and one of the big ranking factors is what rate of return based on different oil prices. We run strips, we run different, and we model these wells, and we try not to pick on projects that we try to pick, obviously, that rank high, but also that can sustain a lower oil price. And then when you get the $82 instead of so we drill a well that's meets our economic cuts at $62 a barrel, and we go to $82 a barrel. Well, that's $20 gravy per project. So that's kind of our big focus as a team as a whole. Not so much just me, but our team really picks the wells so that we can ride the volatility wave and still make money on the bottom in the valleys. That's the key to that project.
What about the U.S. shale and conventional plays? How is King positioning itself for future growth?
Um, Depending on what you read each day of the week, I've spent my career kind of 50-50 conventional type work, and then of course most of the last 15 years, unconventional or shale play, what a lot of the Permian. But there's still a mix of both, and King has a mix of both. We have gas assets, oil assets, mixed oil and gas assets. We have a variety of vertical wells, horizontal wells. A lot of what we're planning right now is advanced horizontal, but Jay pops into projects all the time, and we buy into people's projects or take over things where they're more conventional. So I think I'm a big fan of the no, don't put all your eggs in one basket. And so having projects in each of the buckets, conventional, unconventional, vertical, horizontal, gas, and oil, those are kind of how I put the six. Having stuff spread out through all six is the key. If you got an oil project and a gas project today, you walked into my office, Kelly, which project you want to drill? I want to go chase the gas. Let's go back to East Texas, go to Louisiana. Let's change the Haynesville boom or Cotton Valley boom, what's going on right now. But we're not just. I started my career for a gas company. Timing when gas was king, oil was nothing. It was the gas was in our name, but no oil.
Yeah.
And over time, we had to transition that. And I've worked for several companies, and got bought one time because I worked for an oil only company, and we got bought by a gas company because they didn't have diversity. So I like projects spread amongst the different baskets, and we do that well at King.
Yeah. Yeah. Matter of fact, we're drilling in two spots now. I mean, we have a lot of different assets around the East Texas. We have some in Hockley County, Terry County, Fisher County, Scurry County. But we're really concentrating on the two big projects, and that's one up in the Panhandle called the Bivens Ranch, which is a 60,000 acre ranch, and we're drilling wells there. We're drilling wells in the mid-continent Anadarko range up there, and then we're looking for one more in the future. And we'll concentrate on these three different areas and use equity from partners, equity from family offices or investors to increase the value over time and sell. And it's just like what private equity does with institutions. We do the same thing with retail. So that's a kind of a commercial for us and what we do, because there's a lot of people that go, what do you guys do and how do you do it? And oil company, huh? Okay, and that's about as much as anybody knows when you say we own an oil company. But we'll have funds, and we'll funds every year, and people invest in the fund, and then we'll put that money to work in the field by drilling wells, whether it's in the Bivens Ranch or it's in the Panhandle of Texas in that 6-county area up there, which there is some conventional and unconventionals up there. Most of our wells produce oil and gas. Maybe Bivens Ranch is like a 50-50. It produces both oil and gas. It's a gas-driven reservoir. And then in the Anadarko Basin, it may be more gassy up there than is that what you've seen mostly, Kelly, up there? It's mostly gas?
Correct. Yeah. Definitely gas driven. And like I said, in the current market environment, that's a good thing. So we're going to get more bang for our buck on our gas than we are oil right now. And I had a meeting last week where gas wells are cheaper to operate. Just what we call lifting costs. Gas kind of moves itself. Oil takes a lot of energy, pump jacks, all that stuff that goes back to the energy demand, but it takes electricity to get out. But a lot of our gas wells kind of flow naturally, and I've been blessed to work a lot of my career with high pressure wells, and that brings down daily operating expense or monthly operating expense. So again, helps the client, helps the operator, increase revenue checks because output expenses are reduced. So another reason to like gas wells.
Yeah, that's a good thought. Matter of fact, same thing, right? It's like, well, gas wells, all gas comes up out of the hole, goes straight to the gas line and goes down the gas. It's like, man, but an oil well, you have a pumping unit, you have rods, tubing, downhole motors. There's so many moving parts, and they're hard to, and it's just a lot more expensive to operate. So that's one of the things that. But I like pumping units where I grew up. I grew up. My grandfather out there, we'd drive by a pumping unit and he'd say, slow down, and he'd roll his window down, and he'd listen to it and see what's going on and see how it sounds. It's a different it's a different sound, obviously, for wells that are rubbing, rubbing your rods inside your tubing. I mean, that's something that, Kelly would throw his head up and go, "Oh, again! I can't believe it. Here we go again." Let's see, what else? You serve on the National Board of Oilfield Helping Hands. How does community engagement and charitable work influence your leadership and company culture, Kelly?
It's important to me, Jay. We work hard in the oil field, but we like to give back to the community. I'm big on community impact locally. Wherever we operate, I'm big on supporting the local firemen and things like that. But it's nice at this point, kind of now that I've kind of hit the midpoint of my career and maybe on the downslide, getting right there, to be on more on a national level. Oilfield Helping Hands, great organization. I've been involved for 15 years, but the last year I got asked to be on the board just early this year. And the important part is, and this goes to something else we talked about earlier, safety, right? But there's all kinds of reasons people in the oil field are gone from home, this and that. And it's an organization that really helps people in need. And I'm big on, profits are important in the oil field, but giving back to community is even more important. And it kind of gives us full circle.
That's awesome. That's great. Congratulations on that board chair.
Thank you.
Anything that your buddies, I mean, I know you talked to a lot of different friends, and is there anything that you want to talk about? I'm not going to ask the last question. We always reserve that for Jordan. I won't go there, but is there anything current that people are talking about in the oil field right now that you want to share?
Advancements, the new style, we talked about landman earlier, but land locations are getting tighter, especially in urban areas that we've gone real. I haven't taken these steps yet, but I do a lot of studying what they call a horseshoe well. So when I started my career, we were excited to have a 3,000-foot lateral. And then I remember the first time 20 years ago, I drilled a mile lateral. And then all of a sudden, within 5 years, we were at 2-mile laterals. Now I saw North Dakota well the other day that was a 6-mile lateral.
Wow.
And it was so yeah. So I'm not saying it's for everybody, and there's reasons for and for against it all, but the fact that the technology is there and there's opportunity, and one of the coolest things is these horseshoe wells. So say you're in an area, Rocky Mountains, where locations are super expensive. I've drilled a location with $1 million surface location. So obviously that's a huge fortune, whereas opposed to dirt in West Texas, you can do it for $150,000. So obviously building a pad's tough. So the fact that you can go get the reserves or the reservoir access to 6 times that you can in other areas, really helps the profitability of wells. So that technology continues to move along, and it's cool to see. I've got friends again. And then like you said earlier, Jay, it's not just one service company to drill a 6-mile lateral. The advancements of technology probably came from 6 different companies and 6 different line items on that AFE we talked about earlier. Mud, drilling motors, drill pipe. There's a whole, so it's not just one company came together and had this great idea. It took operators, not just service companies, to make these happen. And so that when the technology comes from a combination of operator and service company together, that excites me, because I like the yin and the yang, the balance of the two working together. And that's the cool part of our industry. There's other industries that aren't necessarily that way. But the fact that the operators work with the service companies to make the whole oil field better, and release some of those patents to the world is important to me as well.
Wow, that's great.
Well, one last question here, Kelly, for you, and that is, what advice would you give to your 18-year-old self, knowing what you know now and having had the career that you've had?
Excellent question, Jordan. Thank you for asking. And I'm blessed, like Jay, I'm third generation. He's fourth generation oil field, born and raised. I knew I wanted to be an engineer at 18. Was actually had people trying to talk me out of the oil field and into it. But by the time I was 18, 19, I knew. And the best thing for me in that is internships, field exposure. Don't go to college to do what you want to do, oil field or whatever, and not have put your foot, not to jump in at least the kiddie pool. So I was blessed at 19, 20. I was 20 when I got my first internship. It was actually the first air conditioned job I ever had in my life. I went from my first air conditioned job. I tried to apply a job at Dillard's and Macy's, didn't get any of that. I worked, dug ditches and hung ceiling tiles and all that stuff. And my first air conditioning job was for an oil company, in their office, basically doing the junior version of what I do today. And that was life changing to me. So work hard, shoot for internships, get exposure to what you want to do post high school or college graduation, vocational, get it up front, exposure to it, make sure it's what you want to be. I think this last summer makes 26 years for me. So, and I people ask me all the time, would you do something else? I still love what I do today as much as I did 26 years ago. So,
what kind of engineering degree would you recommend somebody going through school today? I mean, and I'm going to ask you too, how much does AI have to do with your schooling? But let's first talk about what kind of degree do you feel like that mechanical engineer? I mean, does it matter, or how much does it matter?
I'm biased. I'm a mechanical engineer by degree. Was blessed again, like I said, working from this. I got to work in the ditches in the oil company with my dad, digging ditches when I was 17, 18. And I met some executives for the oil company that my father worked for and I worked for at the time, and was actually on a fishing boat for the company fishing tournament. And I happened to be with I think he was the COO of the company, was on the fishing boat with me. And I think they did that on purpose. I now know that 30 years later. And he was mechanical, and he taught me to be mechanical. A lot of the oil field is petroleum engineers, super important. But he gave me this view of variety is the spice of life. You know what I mean? So kind of like I said, don't put all your eggs in one basket. So I picked mechanical at 18 before I graduated high school, and I never looked back. And
wow.
Mechanical, civil, chemical, petroleum can all come to the oil field. But the nice thing was I didn't have to make my final decision I wanted to do career-wise. Had the oil field market been really bad when I graduated, I could have gone to work at a refinery. I could have gone to help one of my buddies start an HVAC company. So I like mechanical and electrical because they're and electrical goes with AI as well, but the variety, and I'm mechanical first always, and I tell that to a lot, and I belong to several former student councils in my college and whatnot, and that's our speech is, have something that has some diversity. You don't know what you want to do when you're 18 theoretically, so picking a super specific career path, you might not enjoy that so much. And I knew a lot of guys in the third year had to change because they went and did it a little bit and decided civil engineer, man, I don't want to work on a road crew the rest of my life, or electrical, man, I just don't like being on the computer all the day. So I like mechanical and chemical as well because of the diversity in them. So I like to keep my options open. So I try not to pick selective, super finite decisions in anything I do.
Yeah.
So
how is AI going to change mechanical engineering or chemical engineering or civil or whatever?
That's a good question. And
do we have time for that answer? I don't know.
I think talking to the young engineers I talk to now and the millennials, we have one on our staff that I'm probably the last guy to walk into AI. But engineers are famous for not being the best writers in the world. I was blessed to have an English and math teacher for a mother. So essays were important in my life, but I have a lot of friends and I actually have a very right-brained daughter that's not very good at her writing skills. I think writing is a huge thing that AI is going to help. And we even had some people on our staff the other day. I had put something on paper I thought was pretty publicly understandable. And he's like, man, that's a little too technical. So he was able to reword it, basically ChatGPT super thesaurus, and it made my script sound a lot better. So I'll go with that part first. Engineering in whole, it'll help. Data mining is a huge part of that. Engineering principles and basics, that should never change. That shouldn't change. Most of the principles that mechanical engineers follow were written by people, in Italy that wore funny hats, hundreds of years ago. So basic math is basic math, but data mining is, the key part of this, right? Because even today, I spend a lot of my time managing the data when I'd rather be interpreting the output. So for us as an oil company, it's not going to drill the wells better, but it will help me come to conclusions a lot faster. I'm big on, I call it engineering by closeology. So as we get databases together, as that data mining comes together, and we can click buttons or ask the program to do something that I used to have to ask two engineers, an intern, and a tech to help me, process the data. That's where it's going to speed us up. It'll help us draw conclusions faster. I don't want it taking over. Like, I don't want the decisions to be made. I want the data to be presented to us so that we can make the decisions smarter and faster, which both those things equate to better economics.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, we have data on about 700 wells that we've drilled or operated over the years, and I was just thinking about that the other day. I was just thinking about if you took all the boxes of information and the logs and the offset logs and the geology and I mean all the different things along with that. I'm like, oh my gosh, if I instead of having all those boxes, can you imagine how many 700 bankers boxes, and you'd have more than one for most wells, and you would have this building, it's a big building, full of these boxes. Would you rather have that to go to list? Okay, hey, what about that perforation in that one well, and what formation was it in? How many feet did you perforate? How many shots per foot? What's the production? Blah blah blah. Instead of doing that, you just go, hey, AI, I'm not sure. What's the name? Is there a name for an AI person out there yet? I don't know. Sally, is there an AI person? Sally, my AI person. How many wells did we perforate in the Canyon Lime Formation, and how deep and what they produce? Bang. Oh, there it is. I mean, right there. It's like incredible information just like that.
That was a 3-day process when in 2001 when I started, Jay.
Yeah, can you imagine?
That was 2 people 3 days.
Yeah.
And a lot of paper cuts. So.
Yeah. It's gonna be huge. We have somebody coming to Todd Garner, who was over. He was on the show a couple of weeks ago. He's coming over to the office tomorrow to show us more about what they're doing and what they can do. But I tell you, it's an incredible. But if you're out there and you're, Kelly, and engineers, whether you're mechanical, civil, they're the smartest people I know. Now, Kelly, don't take this personal or don't ask me for a raise after this. But they're the smartest people I know because they have a lot of book sense. And they have a lot of common sense, and that's what engineers with these kind of degrees are. And like I said, I'm not blowing smoke up your whatever it is because you're on the show. But
we always have a saying: engineers versus scientists was what we used to say.
Absolutely, 100%. They are.
Scientists cause problems, engineers solve them, is what we say. So yeah, we have to be practical. Yeah. That's for sure. So,
incredible people, but today in making sure that you do. Look at AI, and matter of fact, make sure that before you get your degree and you get out and you're like, oh, wait a minute, I was replaced by AI. Make sure that you're implementing some of that into your degree now, because that's going to be very, very important.
Absolutely.
Well, Jordan, what else you got to finish up the show here? You got anything else going on or anything?
I don't have anything else. I'm really excited about next time we get together and talk, and hopefully some of those interviews will be out and about so we can kind of go a little bit deeper into discussions that were had at the symposium. And Kelly, thank you so much for hopping on today. It was really exciting to pick your brain about all of the different happenings across the world with the oil and gas industry, and also see a little bit more into your world at King Operating.
Kelly's one of those very humble people that he we drove back from the field about 4 hours or something, and it was like, don't turn on the radio. I want to ask you about 1,000 questions. So I could ask Kelly questions, and he was just.
It was a year ago today, yeah.
Oh, my gosh. It was awesome, man. It was great. So I love that drive, and we need to do it again. Because I tell you what, there's nothing better.
Engineers, everyone goes to have an answer for everything. So.
Yeah. I didn't check you. I didn't spot check you on that. So
getting harder to be. Yeah, AI can fact check me faster now. So.
Yeah, it's great. Great information. Well, I'll tell you what, everybody. Thank you so much. Happy July 4th week. Spend time with your family. If you pray to your God, pray to your God. Have a great time with your families this week, and we'll see you back here next week when we're going to talk about. I don't know. We may talk about some more oil and gas. I don't know what we're going to talk about yet. But Jordan, do you have an upcoming schedule? Do we have an upcoming schedule of what's going on next week?
Well, I think we're going to talk a little bit more about what OPEC decided at their meeting. We have a little hint of what they were going to discuss, and then obviously some updates on tariff impacts and other various oil and gas news.
There's going to be some AI stuff.
We're
going to throw in some AI.
Throw a little bit of that in there.
Well, I've got a big meeting tomorrow.
Talk about all of it.
Yeah, I got a meeting tomorrow, and so we'll have more information to see how things how things are going in that direction. But no, it's great. But Kelly, thank you very much for coming on today.
Okay.
It's always a pleasure talking to you and having conversations. You're a great resource. And if you're ever in Dallas, make sure you stop by and you can bring us some donuts. You can bring us some donuts, and you can have some time to talk to Kelly in the morning.
Steak.
Yeah, we'll go to the well and have a steak, or you can bring us some donuts here. But thanks, everybody. Have a great time, and happy 4th, and God bless everybody. Thank you.
Thank y'all.